I'm Clint, and welcome to my Art Fundamentals series, where in each episode we're going to be taking a look at different art fundamentals that I think every artist should know. Basic anatomy and proportions is the topic of this particular episode of Swatches. You want to do some basic anatomy and proportion practicing. Let's touch on that, and then we'll talk about some resources. Going back here, I talked about sketching the skeleton. Say that you have a character or a reference photo like this. Now this is borrowed from FaceStock. And if you are looking for some good stock images to sketch poses from, go check out FaceStock. She is one of the most prolific stock photo posters out on DeviantArt, and they are really high quality, very sharp, very colorful. She's not a sponsor or anything. If you're trying to find a starting point, that's a good one. So if you wanted to practice your skeleton and your basic sketching, don't draw what you actually see. That is, don't draw the skirt, don't draw the hair. You're doing this version of that. You know, about here to here. Divide that in half. That would be right around the crotch, halfway up, and then halfway up there, and that is going to give me my head. And then I know a third of the way down is going to be the shoulders. The shoulders kind of have this sort of thing going on, right? And then a third of the way down from there is going to be the waist. Yep, that'd be right about where she has it. And then we're looking at this shape, which is basically a spherical shape with a notch cut out representing the rib cage. I want to make sure I have the action line. That is this. There's an overall lean to this body, right? So I want to get that in as my guideline. And I'm looking at how much she's turned. So this spherical shape is doing that sort of thing. You can put in a guideline. He has a center line there. I think that's probably a good idea. So here, running down to the notch out, right about that. It also has a lean back a little bit, you know, that way. So the upper body leans back on the top a little bit, comes out forwards on the bottom some. So that would give you the rib cage. And then here, like he just shows the spine. In this case, the spine would be right there. The action line is often where the spine is. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can block in the hips. I'm not a big fan of doing the discs, so I don't usually block it in that way. I'm a little more a fan of using this, kind of a shape like that. This is more of a Bridgman's shape. It's a little more rectangular or cubical, and I find that that tells me more information that I need better than those do. Then what you can do is then put in the line, so indicating where the legs intersect, and her body is turning, so you can understand that she's doing this twist. You can't only see that line, but she's doing that twist. So that leg is coming forwards. That's why that hip is rotating towards us. And that hip would be, we could see just a little bit of the top of that, I would think. So there we go. So that gives me the hip. And these are also going in opposites. I've mentioned that before in some of my other videos. Most of the time, the hips and the shoulders go in opposite angles. That's something that you should know. That way the body keeps balance. You see the same thing here. If this shoulder is high, that means that the opposite hip is high. And that way the body can offset the weight. And that creates this dynamic. One side often has a tight in cut, where the other side often has a stretch. So a simpler line on this side and a cut on that side. She's stretching, so you don't see that a lot. The bones start up here, and it's going to follow that action line down. The shin has a curve out, depending on the angle that you're viewing it, right? So a bit of a curve out down to the foot, and you can just represent that with your little wedge shape at this stage. But then look at the foreshortening here, right? That one is actually ending up higher. Now this arm coming up, elbow is right about the top of the head, and then up pretty much straight from there. Then we have our fist. I mean, we could think of that as a kind of a cube shape if you wanted to. This other arm, we don't see a lot of it, but we imagine what's going on behind it. Coming out here. Elbow coming down to the end of the rib cage. Remember I mentioned that? So there we go. That proves correct. And then that's coming to us a little bit. So we're getting some foreshortening as it goes away, which is why the upper arm looks short compared to that one. So you look at that length compared to this length. And then we have the hand right here. And with the head, he just uses the spherical shape a lot, but let's say that you want to do a more cube shape. And you could put in a line for basically the side of the head, marking the ear. So we're kind of getting the sphere shape and adding just a little planar version to it. And I often put in just the curve of the eyes, where the eyes and the eyebrows are. So that is something you can do with your reference images, and I would suggest doing that. And it gets you in the habit of being able to sketch these very quickly, and if you do that enough, then you can sketch your own characters very quickly, starting with that. You could ditch this altogether and turn it into a completely different character. Like if you want to turn this into a monster or a man, whatever, you can skin this into something else and you know it'll be okay because you started with a really good, accurate skeleton to begin. All right, let's go on to the next item, forms. You know, you could have this as a reference next to you and just doing your own sketch and understanding how these forms are working. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but you can look at the shapes he's using here. The same sort of shapes I did earlier, the same forms, and sketch the forms of what's going on and do that version of them. This will increase your understanding of how to sketch a character without you just relying on copying, and that's a common failing that a lot of novice artists make, or you know, I did the same thing when I was learning how to draw. I copied what I saw, line for line, shade for shade, and it didn't increase my understanding. So what you have to do is look beyond what the actual reference is, sketch the underlying form, then turn it into something else, or just sketch the form itself. You're just doing your studies. All right, one other little practice that you can do that's worth it, head rotations. So you can do a bunch of circles, and this will serve as the cranium of the heads that you're doing. And you can go in and start putting in center lines. And then you can put in the eye line. Now, if you want, you could also put these into planar versions. And so then you would have the halfway there, have the ear, turning on that. And you just want to do a lot of versions of these. If you have some time to spare and you're trying to think of what to practice, this is one. Just do a bunch of spheres, throw in the angles being different on each one of them. Maybe some of them are really, looking way downwards. The face is super foreshortened. Or go find some references and just do this version of the references. Don't draw all the features. Don't worry about the noses. Don't worry about the clothes, anything like that. Just draw the head rotations of each one of them. Last up, a couple of recommended resources. Let's turn this on. So here we go. These are some things that I mentioned throughout the video. First up, Bridgman's Drawing from Life is a collection of sketches. It doesn't teach you how to draw. There are some notes of things to pay attention to, but it's not necessarily how to draw. It doesn't take you step by step. It does use the planar, the very angled version. I think this is a really good one to start with because it shows what forms to pay attention to, and it goes through each part of the body, head, face, upper body, hands, all of that stuff. How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. It does have some anatomy in it, but it is a comic focus. And if you're wanting to go in that direction, a nice little addition to your art book library. And it focuses on using cylindrical forms. A big name in this genre is, of course, Bern Hogarth. Dynamic figure drawing, almost a must-have. He does a lot with motion and foreshortening, but he uses a lot more complex shapes. All these sort of teardrop shapes. And while they are very realistic, are more difficult to learn how to draw. So keep that in mind, maybe not your starter. And lastly, we have Figure Drawing for All It's Worth by Andrew Loomis. We looked at several of his stuff. Did a little censor, don't flag my video. I didn't need it flagged. It uses anatomy and illustration focus. He's talking about what you should learn about anatomy so that you can create illustrations from it, because he was a big-time illustrator doing book covers and book illustrations and doing a lot of advertisements, that sort of thing. So he's like, how can we do this and turn it into a sellable image? He teaches several different styles, from sketching the mannequin, multiple versions of the mannequin, cylinders, planar. It's very thorough. Links are in the description for all of these. And I have recommended a lot of these before, but I have since got Swatches to be an affiliate with Amazon. So if you do decide to go purchase these, I'd appreciate it if you use the links below, because about 10% of the sale will go back to helping support this channel, and that's always awesome. Okay, so hopefully this gives you a really good rundown of some things to know about anatomy and proportions, maybe some things that you need to go learn. What was some of the things that you learned in anatomy that made the biggest difference to you? I'm just curious. Give me a comment below. And if you want to see more videos about anatomy or different parts of it, how to render it, that you find difficult and you'd like to see some input in, let me know in the description below. I'd love to hear about it. There's more videos on the art fundamentals in the channel, links below. You can go check those out. And there's also more coming at the time of this recording. So I'd love to have you to stick around, subscribe if you want to be in tune for those. And that's it for now. Until you say next time, keep drawing.